By the time my school finally got the paperwork, because, non-digital age, it takes a while, and they saw, oh, she belongs in special ed.
When somebody tells you that you're going to amount to nothing, no matter what age, or somebody does that, that's a direct reflection of their insecurities and what they have going on.
Even myself, I realized a couple years ago that all of my surgeries I've had did not take, so I'm going to have to redo them all over again.
Then you're being held back. Your dad comes in like a champion, and he's fighting for you.
I would be like 6 years old at the NYU dental clinic and getting a new dentist every 6 months because they're students. It's a teaching hospital. And I'd be able to rattle off my entire chart. I mean, I wanted to be a doctor. That was my main focus when I was 8 years old. I wanted to be like my Dr. Court Cutting and help other cleft kids.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, hopping on board to ride the wave. I'm your host, Jeff Fisher. Javon Blue, the co-host, is currently traveling, so it's just me. Today's episode is brought to you by 100% Chiropractic. I personally trust Dr. Matt and Dr. Sarah. Their team, they've helped me relieve some shoulder pain that I have. Their positive culture and personalized care make every visit feel like a step toward true healing. And they're in Rockaway, New Jersey. Today, I'm with Mary Glennos. Mary is a really great person. She's an advocate for cleft lip. She's somebody who I admire. I looked into her stuff, and it's pretty amazing, some of the things she's doing. And she's here to share her story about what that was like and a little bit just overall of her experience to educate people. So Mary, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Before we get into the work you're doing now, can you tell me a little bit about what it was like to grow up with cleft lip? And for people actually, sorry, Mary, that don't know what it is, can you first tell them what it is?
Of course.
Yes,
so cleft lip, or cleft lip and palate, which is what I have the bilateral, which means both sides of my lip and the roof of my mouth. It is a facial deformity. I was born without a nose and without a upper lip, or the soft palate of the roof of my mouth was wide open, so it was never fully formed when I was born. And so that led to speech issues as I started to grow, as well as feeding issues when I was first born.
Mm-hmm. And when you were or how did that end up being progressively, like as far as surgery, things like that? So when you were born that way, did you have surgery young, or was it something, how did it affect you?
I had about 3 or 4 surgeries before the age of 4.
4, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was it like, just your experience in school, or what was it like having that? I'm sure at 4, right, kids don't really realize it, or I don't know what age that they may see it. Was anybody giving you a hard time there, or what was your experience just in your general?
I mean, I went to preschool for speech impediment and just speech in general, to be able to pronunciate words properly. But kids really didn't start bullying me until probably about 2nd grade.
2nd grade, okay.
Yeah, I don't really remember much, but I was looking back at a school notebook, and it said that this one particular student was, I complained, I guess, to my mother about it, and my mother wrote to the teacher saying that the student was making fun of me because of my looks.
Okay. And
the teacher pretty much wrote back and said, I didn't see anything, Mary's lying. And my mom was furious because I grew up in a very religious household. So things like lying, cursing, cheating, stealing, none of that was part of my upbringing.
Yeah.
And so clearly from that, it started pretty much a war between my parents and the Board of Education system.
Okay. And that Yeah, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Kids can be so cruel.
They can be.
Yeah, it's this day and age too. If somebody is different or something like that, and did you have any experiences with any of the adults as well, or teachers, anything like that? It was mostly the children.
No, looking back in that notebook, I saw a lot of things that my teachers were telling my mother that I did, or that, I was acting out and whatnot. And going from public school to eventually Catholic school, there was none of those issues in my schooling after I left the public school system.
Did it make it difficult having sort of the stricter rules in place for you?
Not really. I mean, I'm a very regimented person. Maybe it's why I joined the military when I did.
Really appreciate your service, by the way. What military, what branch?
I served in the Army,
Thank you for that.
active duty for 6.5 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Thank you. And so, I like the regimented, being able to know what's next. I don't have to think about it.
Yeah, you have a morning routine, you go through stuff like that. And you mentioned you're a personal trainer too.
I am. I'm a certified personal trainer for the last 11 years.
Yeah, that's great. What do you think the biggest stigma would be that people would have with people with cleft lip?
Well, when I was younger, the stigma was I was not amount to anything. Just like anybody who had Down syndrome or any other type of disabilities, my parents were pretty much told after I was born to put me in a home, kind of like the Mount Loretta of Staten Island, which was no longer in operation when I was born. It just recently closed, but the doctors are like, put her there. She's not going to amount to anything. She's safe. She'll be the ward of the state. And my father was like, no, we're not doing that to our child.
I got a question, because if you were in that situation when you were young, people were being rude and mean to you, or you're getting bullied, did you maybe react negatively there? And then with your speech and your visual look at that time, they were looking at it like an impairment. Instead, it was only something physical, though. It was only because a normal reaction to bullying might be anger or acting out. So that would happen to a normal kid, whether they have something on their lip or not. So it's almost like they leverage that.
Well, yes and no. I also was diagnosed with dyslexia and dyscalculia when I was 7. So that's switching numbers and letters forward and backwards.
Got you.
But there was all I needed was resource for speech. Reading I can get pulled out for, which I did once I went to Catholic school.
Gotcha. When I was in 2nd grade, I was classified as perceptually impaired, and I was taken to another school, and all through high school, special education. No comparison, obviously, because of the cleft, because I can't imagine the difficulty and but it's interesting, and you really can amount to anything, Mary. I mean, clearly it shows that. And I really have to say, and I pray that this is not happening within schools still, to say something like that to a child, or to even allude to that right off the bat, you'll amount to nothing. I mean, come on, there's been people that have come through crazy situations in an amazing fashion. So what do you think was one of the reasons why you were out? Did you have anybody that was there for you during the process? Anybody close to you that maybe went outside the box for you to help out or anything like that? Or is it just on your own?
Actually, it was my parents. I'm the firstborn. My little sister has the same birth defect. We're about 6 years apart. There's 4 of us in the family altogether, so 4 girls. But it was literally my parents, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, because I was the first on both sides of the family.
Yeah.
And, we're talking 1982. So by the time this stuff was happening, we're talking 1987, 1988, 89, when the misrepresentation of special education meant any kid with any learning disability or any disability whatsoever all got lumped into one category.
And I'm sure, most likely, without me knowing, I'm not in the industry, that it's changed. I say that before, but by that, from now or then till now, I'm sure there's been advancements and more humane.
Yeah, of
things.
course. There's inclusion classrooms and things like that. I mean, I work in an autistic school as a social worker, and we have different categories, I would say, of level of cognitive abilities within our schools. And each child is carefully, looked at their cognitive abilities, their psychological ability, everything before we place them in a specific category. And parents have their rights. And a lot of parents don't realize they have rights when it comes to special education because it's not brought to them. It's like, oh, your child has this, your child has that. And parents are supposed to accept it and listen to the school. That was the way it was in the 80s, and that's how they still think it is. But parents have a right nowadays.
And how often do you think that parents are taking things as face value and just accepting it without looking into the details and doing research themselves and not having that involvement like your parents?
We don't allow that to happen. We actually give them, in the state of New Jersey, we have a special education booklet so that starting at pre-K, they get that book and they have those rights, and they know that starting from the very beginning of their education that they have rights.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. So then they weren't educating people most likely on those rights.
No, not back then.
Okay. And the cleft lip, so it's interesting. I was looking at your material and you were showing me, and also your videos. There's a whole community around cleft lip.
Oh yeah, there's
like tons and a lot of stories. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I belong to a Facebook group called Women's Cleft Couture.
Yep.
And it was basically stayed around the lip and wearing lipstick and everyone just placing it on a napkin and seeing the differences in the clefts just from that alone.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's different. There are different variations of clefts. It's not genetic. Only 1 in 700 are born with a cleft, and different variations from bilateral to unilateral to just the lip to just the palate. It's so many.
So many. And everybody, I'm sure, has such a different experience with their life and how it ends up.
Yeah, there was a great movie. It had Hayden Panettiere in it where she travels.
You don't remember it?
It's called Smile.
Oh, Smile?
It's called Smile, yeah.
Oh, okay. Made me smile.
Yeah. It's she's in high school and she travels to China and she meets this girl who has a cleft and they have a connection and she helps her get her surgery and then she sort of helps her travel back to California with her and her father so that they can live the life that they're supposed to live. Did you know that Operation Smile was done by Dr. Court Cutting out of NYU?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was my surgeon.
That's great.
Yeah, he was an awesome guy. Loved him. He did advances in technology. I had a lot of my surgeries early on compared to what the recommended age was that was set up. And yeah, he made cleft kids feel welcomed. And
that's
NYU
good.
still does. I love that hospital.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. Do you ever find that there's people even now still when you're walking around or is anybody rude to you or everybody's pretty respectful about it?
Normally, so a mechanism I had, especially as a teenager, was if I met someone new, I would automatically say, hey, by the way, I have a cleft. And they'd be like, well, what's that? Or if they knew what it was, they're like, oh, I didn't notice. Because my cleft doesn't look like everybody else's, I just have the 2 simple red lines right down the middle of my nose.
Yeah, it's almost, I wouldn't really pay too much attention with it or, think too much about it. But I get that. So did you switch that up then and say to yourself, I sort of maybe have to accept me for who I am and not tell that to people, or what made you stop?
I just eventually stopped.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have to.
Yeah. Oh, because nobody knows that, like, with you. I
Yeah.
got you.
But if I saw another cleft person, then I would say it, because I can tell they have a cleft
Yeah.
where they couldn't tell I did. And what I would say if I saw them was, I see you, I understand you. And it kind
I
of
love
lets
that, Mary. You're such a
it lets them
good
know that I'm
person.
there, and
Yeah. That's sweet.
I
Yeah, that's
understand
nice.
what's going on.
Yeah. And you don't have to share it if it's going to upset you or bring back memories, like growing up and with kids and how that could be, especially then too. There wasn't as much investigations and bullying, although we didn't have the digital bullying nowadays. So I'm going to go to that. What about the kids that have cleft lips now that have digital? I can imagine that being a whole different game, because it's one thing to be directly in front of the person, but to be digitally bullied with a cleft lip might be another add-on kids have to deal with
You
now.
would think so, but my niece, Mackenzie, is going to be 15 this year, and she has a unilateral cleft lip and palate, so she has half of my deformity and half of my sister's, and she is doing phenomenal in high school. She's about to be a sophomore, and digitally, no one's ever bullied her whatsoever. But my sister has been that advocate for her daughter as our parents were for us. And after my mom passed, I took on that role to help my sister. So if she needed anything, cleft related, social work related, educationally for my niece, I was there for her.
Gotcha. No, it's really great. I don't know. I think that my mom told me one time that she feels like reading wise, bit of dyslexia. I wonder for me if being classified, if I had slightly that, a little bit of dyslexia or something like that. Maybe they didn't at that time dig into. You had a legal issue.
I did.
You did have one. Can you explain that?
Sure. So in the beginning of third grade, my parents moved us from one side of Staten Island to the other. So I'm from Staten Island, New York City.
Yeah. Kristen, my wife, that's where she's from.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have never had to go to Staten Island until I met her online, but I like it.
My wife says the same thing.
Sorry to interrupt you, but yeah.
Nah, it's all good.
Yeah.
And so I was aging out of whatever the MS4, whatever they called the program back then. And I was only in there for speech. And so I should have started third grade in a normal third grade class. But by the time my school finally got the paperwork, because, non-digital age, it takes a while. And they saw, oh, she belongs in special ed. So they took me out of that third grade class after a week or so. And then they put me into the special education class with nonverbal kids, autistic kids, those with psychological or cognitive issues. And here I was. I'm not saying I'm not like those kids, but the way they lumped everyone together, you couldn't be able to teach everyone the same because everyone had different abilities.
Yeah, and that's a good point. More individualized, because I felt like that too in school. I didn't think also at that time anybody really cared. The main teachers that teach the normal classes or the AP, when they came to special education, they had their feet up.
Yeah.
Which it should be the opposite. They should take you one-on-one, get to the bottom of how you learn, have a little bit of an understanding in what you're looking to do. I mean, obviously at that age, you're not going to know fully what you want to do with your life, maybe, at that time. But at least get a little bit of an understanding of maybe what somebody's good at. Because everybody is good at something. There could be autism, and there's been cases where they're a genius in something, Rain Man style. That's very true. So uncovering that and it gets, that's why I'm like, not to, hold me back when they said that you were going to amount to nothing, Mary, because look at what you've accomplished.
I mean, I
Goes to
wanted
show.
to be a doctor.
Yeah.
That was my main focus when I was 8 years old. I wanted to be like my Dr. Court Cutting and help other cleft kids.
Yeah. Now, if that was the case, I'd say, all right, well, that's what you want to do. This sort of ties into Waymaker mentorship. It's a process to get to what you want, your purpose, and then a roadmap sort of on how to get there with certain steps to help out. And then the individual who's the mentor is there and doesn't leave the person's side, one client only, until they're out. But it's a friendship though.
Yeah.
Because people feel like they don't care. But aside from that, I think that would be something that would be great for individualizing something in school too.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of what we do now in the education system.
I'm glad to hear that.
We differentiate the way we teach our students. My wife's a special education teacher, and she's got 4 or 5 students, and she teaches the class the way she would normally would, but then she has TAs in the room, teacher's assistants, who then break down the work even further if the child needs it.
Mary, if it's okay with you, I'd like if you can come back another time to get more into that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
your experience.
Of course.
And you said your wife is also
She's a special education
teacher. So why don't you both come in and talk about that? We'll talk about Cleft today.
Yeah,
and
no
your
problem.
experience with that. But yeah, no, that's it's interesting, and I'm glad they're doing that on an individual level like that. What's the most fun you have within the community, within the Cleft Lip? Like, if you meet somebody like that, I'm sure you have an automatic connection, right?
Yes and no. It's kind of like being gay. It's when you see another gay person out in the wild, it's like, oh, I see you. What's up?
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. We don't see us a lot out in the community.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, it's like a hug when you see someone.
Yeah, that's nice. And is there depression? Is there a lot of, I'm sure people are sharing war stories and things. Can you share anything? Maybe just somebody has shared with you?
I mean, not something I've experienced. I mean, I had depression in high school and junior high because of my looks, but that was myself and not kids bullying me. But there's a lot of trauma when it comes to surgeries and how certain surgeries were botched or they didn't come out the way anticipated, or even myself, I realized a couple of years ago that all of my surgeries I've had did not take. So I'm going to have to redo them all over again.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because your body changes and technology changes, and sometimes it just needs to be done. But you've had so many surgeries. You've had so many XYZ.
Yeah,
I had braces for 12 years growing up.
12 years?
From the age of 4 to 18.
Did you have the full head?
No, I didn't have the headpiece.
Okay. The headpiece at night?
I didn't have the headpiece at night, but I did have top and bottom braces.
Remember the headpieces? You don't really see those anymore.
No, that was like 70s.
Yeah, those things were kind of wild.
But
kids once in a while.
I would be like 6 years old at the NYU dental clinic and getting a new dentist every 6 months because they're students. It's a teaching hospital. And I'd be able to rattle off my entire chart. And the student will look at me like, how does this 6-year-old know what's going on? Because I hear it so much. I heard people talk about me all the time.
Yeah.
And they don't think that we're listening, but we are.
Yeah,
So,
kids are smart.
Kids are very smart.
Yeah, they absorb a lot. I think that people don't realize how much kids do listen and how much they emulate.
I've gone back to NYU and I've met who are now the directors of the craniofacial clinics. When I was going through it, they were students.
Yeah.
So it's like a full circle moment. I'm like
their patients.
Yeah, exactly. Because well, not only that, I'm one of their success clients, so to speak.
Gotcha.
It's because I served my country. I graduated high school. I got my master's degree. I've been able to do something with my life than just perseverate on what happened to me as a child based on my learning disabilities.
Yeah. I think that's great. And I see how you motivate. You're very motivational to people in the community to, I think, tell them you are worth something. And sharing stories, that's who we are as people. You know, everybody relates to something that's a story. So when you go out there, it's brave to do that. You know, that's the thing. People that have experiences that could really help other people, and they keep that in their whole lives and they take it to their grave. It's too bad they do, because they've never expressed that. And getting that off somebody, at least for me personally, getting it off your chest, there's nothing better to that. So I think that maybe people like that kind of attract. That's why
I've been a fighter my entire life. I mean, going back to the hearing that I had in 1990, it was the Board of Education system. It was my father, it was myself, it was lawyers, my aunt who was a special education teacher. And they had this whole hearing, and here I am just sitting here, this little 8-year-old little girl, and they're just talking about me.
Right. And it's not, and you're not getting explained anything. You know, kids aren't stupid. People aren't stupid. There's no communication is also important. And they should have said, hey, listen, hon, like, here's why we're talking about this. Here's the reasons why. But still, though, softly.
My father told me before.
Oh, I see. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, my father.
Like the lawyers I meant, but
no. The lawyer we had was our president of our church. I grew up Mormon in Staten Island, in New York City.
Actually, yeah. So we got to order to it. I'm sorry, we're a little scattered. Why don't you tell us like that? You grew up Mormon, and then the details of the case, and the kind of segue into how it went.
I was born and raised Mormon. So obviously everybody knows Mormonism from Warren Jeffs and Joseph Smith and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I grew up Mormon, and as we started third grade, like we mentioned before, they put me back in special education, and my parents went to the Board of Education and was like, she doesn't belong here. She's doing well with her sisters. She's doing well in Girl Scouts. She's with her church peers who are the same age. She's following everything along. She does not belong here.
Yeah.
And they weren't listening to my parents. And so my father's like, okay, well, then we're going to sue you.
Okay.
And October of 1990 came around. I'm a month in, and we had this hearing, and it was all these people and myself, and they were talking about my educational background, my psychological background, my cognitive abilities, how I am at home, how I am at church, how I'm at Brownies and sports. Like, I was a great athlete. While I was a decent student, I was a B average student throughout high school, I was an A+ student in sports. And that was one of the ways that I separated myself from my birth defect, was I was the athlete.
Gotcha. And your identity.
Yeah, I took after my parents. Both my parents were very smart. My mom had dyslexia. My mom was also a little person. She was 4'4", but both my parents were also athletes. So I took after that.
Yeah, and then with the case, so he ends up suing.
He ends up suing.
What were the details of the case, or how did it end up?
All I know is we won. I don't really know.
That's good.
I don't know much beyond that.
Yeah, you were young.
Besides reading the report, because it was like being in a courtroom. Everything's typed out, and you can see my father in the documents fighting and yelling and screaming. And
what do you think? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Not like yelling, screaming, but he was, stern with his questioning.
Yeah.
And his research. My father was a very smart man.
Yeah. I saw some of it. Thank you for showing me. I could tell. I could see that. And I guess that does go to show the importance of having somebody on your side to be there. Even going to the hospital these days, if somebody's really sick, having a family member there, it's like, is the medications right? Is the nurses coming there enough? Things like that. So having somebody by your side, like him, it takes that proactive approach really, and passion to go. So that's interesting. What do you think the reason is that they had you, or they held you back so much? Like, why would they? If you were doing so well, what would be the incentive for them to do that? Liability if something happened, or why? Yeah, I don't get that.
Yeah, so according to the teachers, I acted out. According to the school psychologist,
Were you?
Probably. I don't really remember.
Yeah.
I probably was acting out. I was probably looking for praises because I didn't belong in the class. So therefore, if I finished my work early, they're helping other kids who really needed the help. And I'm just sitting there kind of tweedling my thumbs. It's like, look at me, I finished.
And I think a lot of kids have a phase where they act out. But, you make a good point there. If you're in a situation where you're being made fun of, you're being bullied, and all this is going on, who wouldn't act out a little bit in that situation?
Yeah, and
really? So they're putting you in a position to act out. And then you do, then you're being held back. Your dad comes in like a champion and he's fighting for you.
Yeah, both
Shout out, what's your
parents.
dad's name?
Charles.
Charles?
Yep.
Charles Glennos.
Hargrove.
Hargrove, excuse me.
Yeah.
That's right. Right. Hargrove? Hargrove, we really appreciate you. Shout out to you. You're the man. That's an amazing thing to do for your daughter. I mean, yeah. He won. You guys won.
Yep, we won because by the time my little sister, Casey Lynn, went to school, we didn't have to worry about that. She already had her speech. She had, like I said, my aunt was a special education teacher. So everything she did with me, she did with my sister. So she didn't have to go through.
Right. And you also have your sister that has it. You're able to help her be there. So
after my mom used to go with her all the time to NYU for my niece, but after my mother passed 10 years ago, I stepped in. Thank you. My mom was an advocate not just for children of clefts, because my mom loved helping everybody. She was an advocate, she was a nurse, and all that. But she was also an advocate for cleft animals as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, I actually have a dog that has a bilateral cleft lip and palate.
Look at that. That's because I'm sure nobody would want, and there's some people like you and some people that have the heart. And when I say nobody would want, I'd say that, but usually they could be left behind. Yeah, well, usually animals that are born with clefts are put down after they're born. That's so ridiculous. My Peppa, she eats fine, she drinks fine, she's a little American bully nut. Yeah. As long as a dog could function. Oh, yeah. That's so messed up. Peppa does really well. Yeah, I don't have to worry about her. So you saved Pepper or Peppa? Peppa Pig. Peppa Pig. All right. Yeah. Shout out Peppa. So how noticeable or? Oh, hers are very, hers is really noticeable. I'm trying to picture a dog with one really. And not maybe in the side lip or. Well, because she's an American bully French miniature. They tried to make this miniature thing. Yeah. Her entire litter, all girls, all born with clefts. You could see it in the nose. The nose is wide and open. You could see it in the lip. Her teeth curl up. Oh, okay. Yeah, you could really. You could really see it. That's interesting. Yeah. I have a picture. Yeah, I'll show you later. Yeah, absolutely. What are then the odds of your sister if it's not genetic? Yeah, so odds-wise. I started talking to my father about it when I mentioned on Father's Day that I was coming here. And he goes, it wasn't genetic. And so we used to live by the Staten Island dump. Like all the garbage that got delivered to Staten Island in the landfill, we lived a couple miles away from that. So they think it could have been environmental. It could have been. It could have been environmental. There's a lot of pollution around. But
usually if the first child is born with it, the second child is born with it. But it skipped my 2 middle sisters and went to the baby sister.
So it is environmental and not genetic. But if it went 2 times in the family.
Yeah, but
it's not genetic.
It skipped, and it's very unusual for that to happen.
You know what I'd be curious? We have to look up, like, around that time.
How many kids were born with clefts or disabilities?
Did you ever look at it?
No, my father has, though.
And was it more? Do you know?
I don't know. You would have to have him on to figure that out.
Could we have him on, maybe talk about the case?
Oh, he'll gladly talk about the case.
Potentially. Yeah, we might. It might be something. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it makes sense. Because yeah, it's an interesting case. And then what happened after? You get into normal classes.
I went into
doing okay.
Yeah, I went into Catholic school. Okay. I was held back for the year because I went in mid-school year, but I was held in during lunch so I could get reading help or whatever it was I needed. Went all the way to 6th grade, went over to public school in 7th grade, graduated high school in 2001, top half of my class.
See?
Joined the military, did ROTC in high school.
When somebody tells you that you're going to amount to nothing, no matter what age, or somebody does that, that's a direct reflection of their insecurities and what they have going on. And that it has nothing to do with you. And Mary right here is a shining, complete example of what you could do and what you could turn. So you can actually, perspective-wise, look at it as that means that you're actually more gifted. And in fact, if you have it earlier on in your life and somebody's coming up to you, giving you pushback and bullying you, that means because in your heart and in your spirit, you have something that's a gift that will be, could be way surpassing even them. So, hold true to that. And really a story like this, I hope somebody could take it and really be motivated by it, because it just goes to look at how successful. And then you serve our country, the United States, in the Army. What was your job in the Army?
Originally I was supposed to be a military police, but 9/11 hit. And so I just took the first job that was shipping out, and I was human resources, 42 Alpha. I served 6.5 years active duty, 2 tours to Iraq.
Wow.
I've gotten 3 degrees, 1 certification, actually 3 certifications since. So I'm a medical assistant, community health worker, social worker. I'm a personal trainer.
What aren't you?
Exactly. But everything I do, combines. Like the personal training, I'm using my medical degree. I'm using my social work degree. I'm using my community health degree. So I'm using all that while I'm doing this job that I love. Mm-hmm. I love personal training. I love fitness. I love sports. It's who I am.
Feel your passion for it.
Yeah. And during COVID, I was like, doing advocacy would be the change at a Kane University.
I was literally just thinking right before you said that
about Dr.
You
Bo.
read my mind. So I was thinking right before you said that I should have mentioned her in the very intro, and I was about to say something about her when you said that. So Dr. Bo, Be the Change New Jersey. It's escaping me what number. You guys should really check out previous episodes that she was on. She's an angel. She prays with her feet. She does amazing work. Go to BeTheChangeNJ.com. She was a mentor of Mary. Mm-hmm. She's a mentor of many. And she's somebody I look up to. I really admire her work. Shout out to Dr. Bo. Thank you for connecting us to Mary. And I'm sure we'll be working together, hopefully, and partnering up on many, many different things in the future. I regret now not having that in the intro. But yeah, Dr. Bo, she's amazing.
Oh, yeah. She's my mentor. She was my professor in my community health underdegree. She was our officiant. She married me and my wife.
That's awesome.
She's the unofficial Nona to my son. I mean, we got into advocacy because of her. Like, I was the vet coordinator for Be the Change and helping with homeless veterans and student veterans and getting them service connected.
Did you randomly volunteer? Or how did you get connected?
So her Death in Perspective class, I know you know that very well.
I'd like to, I know I probably, because it's college, right? I can't do it, but I'd like to.
You can audit the class. My wife audited it. We were in class together.
I want to.
Yeah, it was
a great class, right?
Awesome class.
I know.
And we audited the class together. And part of that class is we go down and we do PB&J Thursdays down at Newark Penn Station with the homelessness. And we're doing that as part of our Death in Perspective because a lot of people who are homeless have mental health issues. And that's part of the class is Death in Perspective and mental health.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. And speaking about death, it's a touchy subject, but it's important. It's really important, especially kids, or anybody, to really have that and be open about who we are. And I think that you, Mary, being so open and revealing yourself to people and supporting others in service, correct me if I'm wrong, or correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. To me, when I'm doing those things, when I'm in that mode of service, fills me up.
Yeah.
Just fills the spirit. It's like, and encouraging others is fuel for it. I love it. It's better than anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, to be in the service of people, not just God, but of people.
Right.
Really, you learn stuff from other people when you're in service.
Yeah. And I agree. And it's that connection when you're serving God and then bringing it out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
why I'm a social worker.
It's vessels, right? It's who we are. We're just really walking the plan, doing the best that we can. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, and I think you're doing a great job with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And story-wise, is there anything that's sticking out to you? Maybe somebody that you've helped that was really in a dark place, or do you have like a case study or a testimony of somebody that really was having a hard time with it?
Not really on the Cleft side.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of Cleft veteran friends, surprisingly. At least 3 or 4 of us have served that I've come across. I haven't come across many of us. And it's only through social media that I've connected with them.
Yeah.
But it's a way that we understand each other, both being brothers and sisters in arms and, of course, having our Cleft.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
If somebody didn't have it before, went to the military, maybe an explosive device, created a deformity of some sort, do you ever go in and help them based on your experience to tell them, listen, like, I know you didn't have that prior. I know it would be so different because they would have no experience with something like that.
No.
It would be so new. But they would almost have it.
I've never heard of that happening.
Yeah.
If an IED goes off, you're losing more than just that part.
Shows what I know. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole
nother story.
Yeah, that's a big enough explosion where you're done deal.
Yeah.
But what if something like shrapnel, I guess it would be so rare. It probably wouldn't come up. I was just curious if you ever helped anybody that from the military that had an injury that looks like it.
No, I've never come across anybody like that.
Yeah. But that is something that you saw often in the military?
No, not really.
Oh, okay. But you did have some people that...
Well, yeah, we connected after we got out of the military through social media.
Gotcha.
We already had the Cleft when we went in. So, luckily for me, I had all my dental work so that when I went in, they just picked it up as if I was at NYU. They gave me my bridge for free. They took the braces off. I've had hearing surgeries in the military because of my Cleft. It's been amazing that my Cleft stuff still gets taken care of by the VA or what's currently left of the VA. But that's another story.
We can go on and talk about that.
But
we'd like to have a subject on that.
Yeah, my Cleft story is still in the making with the VA. The VA is taking care of it. Unfortunately, COVID hit and I haven't been able to have any surgeries since on it. But there are multiple surgeries still need to be done. again.
And how recovery time, what would it be like for you?
Depends. They said they want to do 4 surgeries in one. So who knows?
It'd be like an entire day, maybe even longer. 4 surgeries?
Yeah.
I don't know if it would take that long, but that seems...
No, it shouldn't take
not
that long. My breast cancer surgery, my first one, was a full day.
I got to start asking questions instead of assuming everything, right? I'm on one today, Mary, but no, it's very educational. I'm learning a lot.
Thank you.
I would have never known, because I wonder how many people until the show wouldn't have known a community like that does exist.
Yeah, I mean, anyone with a cleft, any female, I should say, with a cleft, who wants camaraderie and support can find Women Cleft Couture on Facebook.
Okay. Is there any way anybody could reach out to yourself too? Would you, if you want to, only if you want some
I'm
contact
open.
info? Somebody right now is out there that, would like to be in the community or would like to just ask you for advice.
Yeah,
or connect
anybody
with you.
can reach out.
Yeah,
I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
Do you know your usernames or do you want to?
Yes.
Email
So Instagram is training_2_B_me. So I'm training to be who I am.
Love that.
Both TikTok and Facebook is Mary Glennos.
Don't have to go it alone.
No.
That's right. Isn't that true? It really takes a team. I had to learn that.
Yeah.
You can only do, it's like you get an independent phase when you're born. I mean, I'm sorry, a dependent phase.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to rely on your parents. Everybody's doing, to survive. And then you go into that independent phase, maybe living alone, doing that thing. There's a synergetic phase. Not everybody gets into that.
No.
That synergetic phase of, all right, well, I'm independent, but I realize now it does take help. I have to ask for help. I have to build a team. If I have a vision, if you're going to be doing this, you need other people to be on board. And being humble is important too, I think. Not realizing your limitations and what you can do. I'm not always
you always need
great
that
at
support.
it, but yeah, it's true, right?
Even without knowing it. So, like, before I became a personal trainer, people were like, oh, you joined the military, you were a high school athlete, like, you could train me. I said, yeah, I can train you, but I don't want to hurt you.
Right.
So I went and I got my certification, and now I don't hurt people, I help people.
Yeah, and there could be some liability there too. Somebody could maybe...
Yeah, and that's where it my medical side comes in. So I may not have become a doctor, but I have a medical background.
Look at you, Mary. I really think you're great. I think what you're doing. Is there anything that you want to mention before we wrap it up, specifically that you think people need to know?
Yeah, so recently in the last couple of years, there's been a Cleft Con. Kind of like Comic-Con, but for clefts.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, last year was in New York. I think this year was in Philly.
That's cool.
And they're every year, and everybody comes together. I've done a couple of theses on clefts, and so I have those videos out on TikTok of, what my cleft has taught me, and I had that of some of these women in my cleft group, and it's amazing what everyone sees differently in themselves from the one thing they were born with.
You know what you should do, or just throwing it out there, maybe program where you can educate in like a school certified program where you could educate schools a little bit.
There is one.
Oh, that's fantastic. But not only just like you can use it for cleft. Yeah. That could be the intro, but for just people who are different.
There's a woman in my cleft group that already does that in this state.
See, that's exactly.
Yeah.
But I mentioned it because I think you would be good at it.
Oh, thank you.
Like you actually having your own style is what I meant.
Yeah. I mean, eventually what my wife and I want to do is make our own community center. Using her special education and athletic training background, my personal training and social work background, advocacy, homelessness, like We just want to throw everything together in one building if we eventually could.
Well, I love that. Yeah. And, you know, Mary, you have the full support of Ride the Wave Foundation. So as you pursue this, and I really hope you do, one thing that I've learned pursuing Ride the Wave, and this is going to be great. We're already working with the Morristown Police, like I mentioned. We have things that are lined up for it to really open up in a nice way and bring something to the table in a large way that is good. It's good works. And if you're a perfect example. If you're persistent and you are going towards good works, fruit will open up. God will provide. But that doesn't mean when you start it up that it's going to be easy. In fact, there's going to be a few walls, I think, up that are purposely needed to be broken through because God's saying, do you really want this? Do you really, really want this? But if you just keep pushing through, and if you need any resources or if you want to just brainstorm anything at any time, just let me know. We've had kind of like we have a little subgroup of people.
Yeah.
Somebody that came from City Relief that we brainstorm a little bit and we share resources. So, anything like that, anytime, glad to help because a community center is needed. Women's shelters and church, like there's so many things that are needed.
Oh yeah. I mean, it originally started off as opening my own gym and then going through social work and everything else. It kind of broaden our advocacy group. My wife's mother reopened our local high school in the 90s, and she was a huge advocate. My wife became a huge advocate. I've always been a fighter. So like to have Dr. Bo and, all that stuff, it's been amazing. I mean, I have my own gym, but it's out of my garage. So it's slowly being built.
Yeah, and it takes time. For me, it's something that's always on my mind constantly. I do my best for it not to spill over to Kristen. It's tough for me sometimes to shut it off.
Yeah.
Because I know, but like you said, it is a step by step. We usually do things in threes. So we'll have a few projects and then a few steps that are important, high priority ones that we'll do, slow steps. But we're also, one thing that's important is for us to be open to receiving new opportunities, not turning them down too.
Oh, yeah.
But having a plan is great. Making sure it's a bit flexible to maneuver in there, but finding balance could be sometimes a bit of a challenge. But I love it. I love what I do when I wake up and just, right? And I would think that aside money, anything like that, do you like what you're doing?
Oh,
do you love it?
I love my job. I mean, I'm not a social worker right now because trying to find that in the school system is ridiculously hard.
Yeah.
But I'm a paraprofessional for an autistic school. So they know I'm a social worker. So they'll use me when they need me. But I couldn't turn down my population. I love the autism population. And that's where I got started in the education system.
Yeah, and I think if you stay true and you're honest and you represent them, and just like your dad, who's a very strong man, sometimes you have to stand up and you have faith. Because faith for me personally is where the fight is 100%. When I'm off faith, I'm off everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we have some things in common there. But Mary, again, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. This has been really educational. I learned a lot of things that I didn't know. So it's always nice. And I think it's amazing that there's a community out and you're doing so much to help people. So thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate that.
And thank you for having me. I love sharing my story.
Yeah, maybe we'll have you come on like we talked about before about the other thing, the more in-depth social work. And, I don't know about whether it makes sense to go into the case, but we can figure that out.
Yeah.
Too, and talk offline. But again, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to Ride the Wave.
Thank you for joining us.
It's been a pleasure having you with us as we explore ways to make a positive impact together.
Bye-bye.
Remember, every little wave creates a ripple of change. We appreciate any support you can provide as we plan to build an all-inclusive, modern campus and empower communities. For details on how you can contribute through various platforms, please visit us at ridethewave.org. Until next time, keep riding the wave of change with us. I'm Jeff Fisher, signing off, but the journey continues.